Hello and welcome to the Famaland podcast. It's Easter week and the whole family is here, including Muttley. So hoping that he might have something really meaningful to share today. We're talking about spiritual formation based on the conversation that we had with Amanda Neal. Great interview.
She was brilliant. So if you want to listen to that before you listen to this, Amanda Neal was amazing.
She was.
And it was a great start for this conversation that we're going to have over the next few weeks.
Yeah, we thought maybe we can have some conversations about the different aspects of spiritual formation. You might have come across John Mark Comer's work of practicing the way. Amanda referenced it briefly. He talks about there being 9 spiritual practices. That's not all the spiritual practices, but we thought they might be a helpful inspiration, helpful little springboard for our conversation over the next few weeks to think, well, what might that look like for family life? What might it look like for parents trying to build that into their kids? Things like being generous, things like fasting, praying, Bible study, all those spiritual practices. So we thought we'd use today as a bit of an intro. Something that Amanda said, which was really interesting, is that something is forming us or shaping us all the time. Maybe start there. What do you guys think? Is that true?
Yes.
Go
It's
on.
like what you eat, everything you consume is going into you and influencing you. So if you're spending like 5 hours on TikTok and you feel grudgy, or like if you've eaten 5 McDonald's meal deals in one day, of course you're going to feel crap the next day. So it's like the same kind of idea of like what you're eating, what you're consuming, what you're looking at, what you're thinking about is going to form how you perceive the world and how you perceive God and your friends and people around you.
Yeah.
100%.
I think my mind stretches to sort of how people around you treat other people. So I think the first thing that came to mind was like how Mum would teach us to respect the homeless people and put them before anything else, like especially if the Lord's speaking to you about something in particular. And that's definitely formed me in the way that like I won't just sort of walk past a homeless person, but I'll try and acknowledge them as well. And even before Mum had sort of gone out of her way to teach us those individual things, she would have also just acted out them.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that you did that, we all saw that you did that, and you as well, Dad. So I'm not saying, but I think Mum in particular, sort of, she would act that out, and sort of, it'd be our first instinct to do the same thing because that's just what's normal to us.
So formation is partly about it being modelled to you
Yeah,
by your parent. Interesting. Yeah.
I think as well, it's also how, I don't know how to phrase this, but I don't want to say peer pressured, but I think if you have a tendency to be swayed by the people's opinions more, you're more likely to be swayed a lot easier. So if you go back to Toby's thing of like people around you, if I think back to maybe high school age, 14, and I'm a young girl and I don't know, people are gossiping or something, that's happening around me. And actually, I feel like that pressure is being involved and being formed by that environment around me. And like that is more likely to have an impact because of my tendency to be pressured, if that makes sense.
You want to be accepted.
Yeah. So I think actually once you are mature enough to not have that influence of being pressured like that, I think you're more aware of what's around you and what's able to form you. So you're a lot more able to choose what is forming you. So I think it's a maturity thing and an age thing that as you develop and you grow, you learn, okay, yeah, like this is a world where we're formed by lots of different things, but I'm able to now choose what actually is going to form me.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And that was a big thing. I remember, I mean, that was sort of around the table, Dad and me would have conversations about your friends in a relaxed way, not in a who are your friends? Do you know what I mean? But if you brought up something, we would say, oh, do you think that's a good way of treating a friend?
Yeah.
Is that the kindest? And so it would be more of a conversation. I remember doing it lots in the car on the way back from school or on the way to school. And I think there's so much noise, isn't there? And you're right. And I'm still learning. You know, I do think you learn and you grow in maturity about who influences you. But Amanda said it on the podcast, and I've heard it a number of times. We're looking down at our phones so much instead of looking up to God. And it's so important that we're looking around and being, I think you and Toby, Lucy and Toby used the word being present and being present. And I'm still learning that, but we're so, and I am so convicted a lot of the time of how much we're here rather than being in the moment.
Yeah.
And that influences us so much, and the people we're around, and actually that accountability is really talking is really important, because if you're just on your own, or you're being influenced by these people, if you're not in a family round the table or have friends that can keep you accountable, or say, oh, do you think that friend's a good influence? Oh, you're looking, mum, you're on your phone again. Mum, look at me. Whatever it is, we'll all need to be challenged. You guys challenge me. We need those people in our lives to form us.
Yeah, and we live in an interesting season, don't we? Because I think I was thinking back in the day when Instagram started, like you were just looking at photos of your friends, catching up with what they were doing. That's really nice. Similar as when Facebook started all those years ago. But now you turn on Instagram and you're fed by algorithms of things that they want you to look at, short form videos that's going to keep you in the app. And suddenly I'm not being formed by the friendships I've got who I'm following on Instagram. I'm being formed by the algorithm that's trying to keep me on an app. Rather than being influenced by or vintage.
I just felt like when Lucy was speaking, I'm not going to claim that I know this verse off the top of my head. And if you saw me on my phone, that's what I was doing. Which is why I laughed when Mum said about being present.
I thought you were laughing at me because I'm
no. I mean, well, there's also true. But
I'm trying, folks.
Proverbs 18:20 is walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm, or like some of the other versions say, like they'll become in trouble and stuff. And I've just felt like that was basically what Lucy's saying, summed up.
It's really good. And maybe that ties into the analogy that Amanda used about passive and active formation, and being like a boat that doesn't have a sails up or doesn't have its engine on or whatever. It's completely at the mercy of the current or the wind. It doesn't have a direction. It literally can't go in the direction it wants to because it's not being powered. There's no intentionality about it. What do you think drifting looks like for a family or for kids? What does that mean?
I think the key word that stood out to me was the intentionality. Without being intentional of what you're prioritizing as a family, that's when you're just going to be drifting and it kind of just going everywhere. Whereas like when we were growing up, there was the intentionality of like, okay, we're going to sit down as family and do dinner time. We're being intentional with that. We're doing highs and lows, we're having those conversations. The intentionality of he used to bring us, I think we've talked about this before, he used to bring us tea every morning, like help encourage us through our Bible studies. From Grandpa originally. We didn't even like tea, but
we have thrown away a lot of tea that never got drank.
Yeah, me too. But like mum's always like done her mornings with Jesus and her cup of tea. And so I think like reinforcing and like, maybe it's not all about this, obviously not about the tea, but that encouragement of like, okay, like how are you spending your mornings, and like that intentionality. So I think, that is the key word, is being intentional with how you're modeling it as a parent, but also like how are you incorporating the family. And I think that's what Amanda spoke so well on in the last episode, was that actually there was the intentionality of encouraging and including the family as a whole. Like, how is this going to fit into our family well? How can we do things that our family can realistically do, rather than it's just, oh, this would be a good idea, but it's not going to happen.
It's not necessarily what drifting looks like, but like Lucy's saying, to prevent it in a way, I guess, is the consistency of things. So rather than being intentional about saying doing highs and lows, or praying every evening, like before going to bed or something, saying the Lord's Prayer going to bed, and actually being consistent with that intentionality, rather than just doing it once here,
like a habit.
And then stopping that. And sort of being consistent with something always helps prevent the idea of it sort of disappearing. So if you miss it one time, then you might forget it another time, and then you'll forget it another time, and it'll just get more and more that actually that sort of intentionality, or that thing, that practice that you've done, like highs and lows or something, could be just so simple that's already just sort of left, and that's disappeared. So maybe what drifting looks like is losing the consistency of what you're trying to be intentional about.
That's good.
It is good.
That's good.
It's actually making me think about, I remember getting very excited when I found out that coal and diamonds are exactly the same substance,
Yeah.
but diamonds are formed very differently to how coal is formed.
Yeah.
I wrote a song about it decades ago. But
Pearl, everybody.
Pearl. So, but the point is that
It's called Pearl. It's beautiful.
the point is that diamonds are formed by an incredible amount of pressure, and it's making me think kids, young people have all sorts of pressures being put on them, don't they? And I suppose what we're talking about, intentional spiritual formation, is choosing to allow the positive pressure of God's word and the challenge that brings to form us
Yeah, that's really
in an intentional way, so that what turns out is a diamond rather than coal. And so I guess one of the questions would be then, well, what are the other pressures that children and young people are facing today? Because if church or God or spirituality is just one of the pressures that's forming us in one particular way, what are some of the other pressures that might form us into coal rather than diamonds, one might say? Maybe that's not a helpful analogy.
No, that's really good.
What are some of the things maybe that you even went through, and what are some things is it that you saw with the kids go through? And I mean, peer pressure was one for me growing up massively. And Lisa, you've kind of referred to that already. Just I was talking with a family on Sunday at church, 13-year-old girl, really struggling because friendships aren't straightforward. And I was like, oh, this sounds so familiar. The stuff that we journeyed with you about. I don't know. Peer pressure is one that came to my mind. What else? What else?
I also think like career-wise, I think in the world of social media, like I've been struggling with this like recently and just kind of got over it. But maybe this is more for like creatives, but there's like such a pressure for like take off and be the best. And especially with social media, there's this whole thing of, okay, if I'm going to do this, I have to be like this influencer with all these different things. Whereas like this idea of like just living an ordinary life is just kind of like looked down upon or like isn't really spoken about. And like it's great to have aspirations and like dreams, but I also think that like we've lost the ability to be like living an ordinary life is great. Actually, the pressure of trying to get to that like influencer state, for example, my art. It's not that I wanted to be an influencer, but like with art, you need people to see your art for you to take off. And so I think that becomes consumed, and I think that's influenced by our culture of we're just so accessible with everything like all the time. So yes, technically that is a possibility, and it does happen to some people, like they just pop off overnight and actually their career is just taken.
That's very rare.
Away. But I think that's the thing. I don't think people talk about how rare that is enough, and actually how it's great to have dreams, but like also like let's be realistic.
But can't you have dreams? I think sometimes you can have the pressure, like people, I think Amanda was talking about the pressures. She's a youth worker in Surrey, and just the pressure of having a successful career. So not even an influence, but
no, exactly. I guess
think
that's what I'm going
it
on.
covers everything, doesn't it? In that you've got to be this doctor or an engineer, whatever it is, which is not a bad thing at all to have aims and to have goals, but it can become overwhelming. Would you say?
And almost idolized.
Or exams, and so
Well, it's certainly
that's
one of
what
the things that
Amanda was.
forms people.
That's what Amanda was
you're
talking about.
formed.
There was so much like the exams and achieving was maybe it was a bit too much, the pressure. Would you say that?
I think it depends on the person, to be fair.
And the school, I suppose.
That's true.
I do agree.
And especially the parents as well.
Yes.
Like, I mean, it depends on the school, like you're saying, but I think it's mostly dependent on the parents. You and dad would always be like, just do your best, but like we want to see that you're working, we want to see that you're actually trying, but do your best in the exam. That's all you can do realistically. Whereas a lot of my friends at school would be like, oh, my parents are expecting stars just all round. And even though our school's a great school, it's not like well known for being ridiculously academic. There wasn't huge amounts of pressures at school. It was more likely like
at home
expecting that much of someone who's like 16, 17, maybe in A levels. I mean, that's just a crazy amount of pressure to be put on someone, especially at that age, and then to expect them to have this faith. And I think if you're expecting your kid to have this incredible faith, I think sometimes that can cause people to like try and have this fake faith, like this sort of Sunday
Right.
faith that you see. There'll be like a kid who puts their hands up in worship kind of vibes, but that's all just an act. And then when it gets to Monday, they'll be a completely different person.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that comes from the expectation that because I'm a Christian, my kids should be Christian. And because I've got a faith, my kids should have just as much of a faith as me.
Mm.
And where that's great, I think actually putting that pressure on them, like verbally putting that pressure on them, like I think it actually could probably be quite detrimental to them.
And cause the person to go the opposite
Yeah,
way.
no, that's
Is that
that's what I was
the
going to
neg-
get to.
so
Yeah,
so you're talking about parenting and parents' pressure with
Right.
work, with maybe faith. I mean, nagging
gulp.
sends you the other direction, doesn't it? I mean, you used to talk about that with me, because I'm like, Mum, can you stop nagging? You know,
Yeah, it definitely made me not want to revise.
yeah,
Okay.
it's true. It's true. Fair. Probably nagged more.
No, I think it's a completely different thing when it comes to faith and
Mm.
like work and stuff. Like if they're willing to have like a mentor or something and they want to do that, then so be it. But I think nagging someone about going to church on a Sunday, as great as the consistency, like a 17-year-old is like, I'm 17 now, like you can't exactly, I don't know.
Mhm.
I think it's that whole
It's a
thing
really
of,
hard balance.
yeah, of like it being your choice, and like, as much as you desire for your kids to have a relationship with Jesus, like that's great. But at the end of the day, mum and dad were really good at this. It's just being, I want this to be your own faith too, and like it doesn't need to be our faith. So like at some point, like you guys were like, well, if you don't want to come to church, you don't have to. But obviously at that point, we were like, yeah, we want to come.
Mm.
And I think that's because that wasn't that constant pressure or nagging and being like, yeah, it's hard because I think to a certain age, like I think it is important to be like, you're coming.
Oh, we did do that.
Oh, you guys did do that. Like I remember very much. Like sometimes it'd be like, I don't want to go. And you're like, no, I'm
Mhm.
going. Get in the car. But yeah, I do really think that the most powerful thing that you can do in that situation is just pray for your kids.
Yeah.
And like, I think that will probably do you more than nagging them.
Or find another church.
Yeah.
Or modelling it as
Yeah.
well. Like Toby was talking about, actually, if you're not modelling it in the
Yeah.
first place, then your kids aren't going to see.
No, exactly.
Well, it's
just
lovely
irritating.
church, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because if you're moaning about church or you're not going yourself,
Mm-hmm.
your kids are not.
I think like the priority thing is really important of what are you prioritizing, because
Okay.
like your kids will have so many things that they're invited to or would like to do, or there's like 7 different club opportunities after school,
Huh.
but then you've got your youth club on a Tuesday or whatever day it is,
Mm.
but then there's the drama class on a Tuesday. Which one are you going to go to, a youth club or your drama class? And if your kid really wants to be, that would be what I would choose personally. I'd want to go to the drama class.
Mhm.
Then you find another youth group for your kid to go to, because
Yeah.
if you start putting those rhythms in place, that'll help them for the future. Because I know that now we all go to church in our separate churches in London, but we are all part of small groups because we've seen the formation that they bring. And like, if your parents, as Mum said, aren't going to church consistently on a Sunday or moaning about church, that is just going to form you to moan about church and not want to go.
Yeah.
So you've got to be creating those kind of expectations. And if your parents aren't going to a small group, then you're not going to want to go to a youth group, because why do you need church community if your
Yeah.
parents aren't?
Yeah,
True.
so
But
relevant.
I heard this really good thing once about the word priorities was always singular. It was the word priority, and in the last 100 years or last 50 years, it's become a plural. So it used to never say the word priorities, you'd say the word priority. So if your priority is not Jesus and your church community and the spiritual formation, then you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
You're-
Yeah.
That's
you're adding
good,
priority to
Daisy.
the thing.
Preach it.
Well, it makes sense, doesn't it? Because if it's a priority, then it comes first. And so to have a list of priorities, like, I suppose you can't order them, can't you? But the question
Yeah.
is what comes first. It reminds me, I think James K. Smith wrote this book called You Are What You Love. It's about how worship, and maybe we'll get into that in that episode, but what we love is the thing that forms us.
Yeah.
And you find out what you love by how you choose to spend your time. And I think what we're
You're always-
trying to argue here is that you can be intentional about that. I'm choosing to love Jesus first, therefore I'm going to put these things in place. I'm going to read scripture or go to church or whatever it might. look like because that's my priority and I'm choosing
Yeah.
to.
And it's a choice. And sometimes, you wake up in the morning and you have a cup of tea and your phone's there. Well, then if it's too tempting, then put your phone downstairs or put it somewhere else, or vintage's calling, but actually the
Jesus
Bible,
is calling
Jesus is calling,
as
not
well.
vintage.
You liking Vinted at the
I
moment?
am. I'm really addicted to vintage. It's really bad.
Great.
Doing a lot of wedding shopping. Anyway.
You've opened scripture, Lizzie. Come on.
Yes, no, but it's that whole Martha and Mary thing,
Okay.
isn't it? All form differently and we've all got different personalities. Gareth's very good at waking up in the morning. I'm horrendous at waking up in the morning. And also I'm an activist. And so the Martha and Mary thing I find very challenging. But it was just talking about the one thing,
Yeah.
Luke 10. Verse 41, Martha, Martha, Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her.
Ooh.
Only one.
And I was
So challenging.
Fire.
yeah, it's good.
But it's challenging, isn't it?
But
Yeah,
what
I'm more
I
Martha.
found interesting, I was listing the things as we were saying, the different pressures that we're talking about being on children, young people. Church as a pressure for a demand on our time. And all the things that come with trying to follow Jesus. Our friends, our peers, our parents, a career, our education, our phones and the digital environment. Actually, none of those things are bad.
No.
Like, there's nothing bad
No.
about any of them. They're all really good, potentially.
Yeah.
I mean, our peers might draw us into a really difficult situation. Our parents might not be the healthiest parents, but basically, they're all quite good things, but they can end up becoming unhelpful because of the way that we prioritize them, as you were saying, Daisy. So the intention is we're going to do these as shorter episodes to help us consider and think, well, what's one thing that we could do as a family? And as I was reflecting on the spiritual habits, I know Amanda talked about finding something that you do that you enjoy, but if we're thinking about how we grow in that awareness of what is forming us, I was reflecting on how I think unintentionally highs and lows at the end of each day have become a really helpful tool to help us reflect on what's forming us. It opens up conversation. It helps us realize the things that have been really hard through the day and why perhaps we're reflecting on those things that are really difficult. It helps us to celebrate things. There are good things that are going on as well as things that might be really hard. And our point has always been there's always a high. You might have no low, hooray! But you always got to find a high. There's always something.
Food we eat, the roof
thankful
over our
for.
head. Yeah.
Well, I just wondered whether, as if we're going to think of different things through each episode of, well, what could a family do to try and develop this as a spiritual practice? I think one thing that each family could do is try to build in highs and lows through maybe the end of the week or at the end of each day. We did it daily, just as a way of beginning to be a bit more intentional about recognizing what are those.
Well, we still do it, don't we,
things.
David?
We do.
We still do it.
We do.
Still choose each other.
Yeah. Even when it's just Lizzie and me, empty nesting, we still
Who do you
think
choose?
high and low.
Who do you think I choose?
I hope that's been a helpful conversation, sparking some thoughts for you about what spiritual formation looks like in family life. I want to encourage you, maybe if you don't already do highs and lows, maybe that's a practice that you could build in once a week or even once a day to help encourage your families to be built around Jesus and his teachings. Next week, we're going to be thinking about the practice of prayer, what it looks like to develop prayer in our family lives. So we look forward to seeing you for that. And God bless you. Have a great week. Bye.